Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, brought to you by Bet365. We're coming to you from the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studios. Visit shoptoyota.ca or visit your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. My name is Dave Gugelli. I'm joined by Harman Dial, 2 days away from Canucks hockey. A busy episode today. We've got Jeff Patterson joining the show. We've got Patrick Alvine quotes to dive into. We've got line combinations to dive into. We got roster moves to dive into. So with that, Harm, how you doing today? And Harm left his mic muted. That hasn't happened. You know, that used to happen when we first started. That hasn't happened in years. You got your nice setup now.
Yeah,
Wasn't
I
expecting
got it fixed now. No, I'm fired up for opening night across the NHL. I know there's only 3 games happening, I believe, but it's gonna be fun to see the Rangers right off the bat,
I
right?
didn't even mention that. I was like, oh, busy show. I forgot to even mention, like, regular season hockey starts today. Like, we've got NHL games today.
And interesting storylines, right? The afternoon game, which is going on right now, I believe. Puck drop will probably be in a few minutes. You get to see what the Panthers without Barkov and Kachuk look like, although it's against the Chicago Blackhawks, so not exactly the stiffest competition. But I want to see what the New York Rangers look like under Mike Sullivan in the second game. And again, weaker opponent in Pittsburgh, but that's going to be really interesting to see whether they can fix the defensive tire fire they were. Because if they're bad again, boy, that could be one of the most interesting soap opera type seasons in the NHL. And then the finale, LA, Colorado. I want to see what that Kings blue line looks like with less mobility on it. No Gavrikov. That's obviously going to be pertinent to the Canucks playoff chances.
Let's get into our opening segment, which is brought to you by the Daily Faceoff Survivor Pool. You should sign up now because we're starting. We're going to start and we're not going to slow down. We're not going to wait for you. So you got to sign up now, okay? The Daily Faceoff Survivor Pool is officially live and you've got to join. It's a game of elimination strategy and a $2,500 grand prize for the last fan standing. Here's how it works. You start with 2 lives. Each round, you pick one winner from the slate of NHL games. But here's the twist. You can only use each team twice throughout the entire contest. If you get a pick wrong, that's 1 life gone. You lose twice and you're out. The pool runs until there's just 1 person left standing, and that winner takes home $2,500. You ready to outlast the rest? Sign up now at dailyfaceoff.com or hit the link in the show notes. May the best fan survive. I'm gonna go through my picks. I love doing this. I love this kind of stuff. I'm gonna go through my picks probably tomorrow. I might change up what I had originally selected, but we'll talk about that tomorrow.
And Quads, are you actually registered for the Daily Face-Off Survivor Pool?
Yeah.
Are you good? Okay, just making sure. Harm, are you registered for the Daily Face-Off Survivor Pool?
No. 0 chance. Yeah, 0 chance. He will though.
But I will be.
We'll make our picks. And yeah, everybody else should be signed up as well. Okay, couple moves today. Canucks recall Victor Mancini on Tuesday morning. In a corresponding move, P.O. Joseph hits IR retroactive to September 30th, which basically just means the Canucks can activate him whenever they want to. But anyways, P.O. Joseph on IR, that makes the roster space for Victor Mancini to get called up. Patrick Alvine spoke today, gave an update on P.O. Joseph. Basically, that sounds really close, but just said, oh, we determined he wouldn't be ready, so we used retroactive IR. And then Bluger is going to be out another week or so, according to Alvine. Bluger, of course, was hurt in the Canucks Friday night preseason game against the Edmonton Oilers. All of this, Harm, it leaves the door, and I want to talk Mancini too, but Bluger's injury is the more interesting one for what it means for the roster, because that leaves the door wide open for Aatu Räty to be this team's 4th line center on opening night.
Yeah, and it's a huge test for the penalty kill. No Teddy Bluger and no Pia Suter, who was part of the first unit PK up front as well. It's going to be a brand new first unit PK up front. Räty, just for the sake of his face-off ability, I wonder if he has a leg up to play PK1 because he's less experienced than their other penalty killers at the NHL level, but you need somebody that can reliably win draws.
Yeah, who you sending out?
Yeah, like what's the alternative? Sending out Petey?
It's Petey. It's Petey and Räty.
Who's like, the coaching staff is probably more confident in Petey's in-zone defensive ability just because he has more experience accumulated through the league, but he's not nearly as good in the draw as Räty is. So I'm really curious to see as well, are they going to do use him strictly for like face off, get off, right? You win the draw, clear, get off. I'm curious to see how substantial of a role Ratu does or doesn't play on that PK. But I'm also thinking specifically about Saturday night against the Oilers, because against the Flames, they don't have the most potent power play. I'm not too worried about Vancouver's PK. But against the Oilers, with the way that McDavid and Draisaitl zip it around, like that's going to be a really big test. And I think this is also, if they pass it, I don't even mean to frame this as a negative per se, because if they are able to prove that their PK can hold up and perform really well without Bluger, well, then I think that opens a door for you not needing to dress Bluger as an everyday player this season, which I think does matter, because quite frankly, the PK is the main reason you have Bluger as an everyday forward in your lineup right now. At 5-on-5, I don't think he moves the needle at all. I think he's reliable defensively, but oftentimes there's nothing to give offensively. And if the PK, the first unit, can prove that it can perform at a high level without Bluger, well, then all of a sudden you can be a better 5-on-5 team by keeping Bluger in the press box at times in the season and giving more of a rope to Aturatu.
It'll be an interesting litmus test. Braden Coos, do you think he kills penalties?
I don't know if you put that on the plate of an 18-year-old that quickly. I know he's mature. I know he's smart.
Did
but
it in preseason?
Maybe we'll see. You're right. That could be a possibility. But as an 18-year-old, the one thing I'd be cognizant of as a coaching staff is how much are you trying to teach a kid all at once. You don't want you want a player to be playing off instincts, and he's probably, there are so many things to learn at 5-on-5 in terms of systems and trying to build chemistry with line mates, that if you're trying to also teach him, all right, we're going to thrust you potentially into a PK role, I wonder if that's a little bit too much to ask for.
Fair enough. All right, on defense, like we said, P.O. Joseph, we don't know exactly how long he's going to be out for, but if he misses beyond just the first game of the season, the thing I'm really interested in, Harm, and it looks like Mancini's going to sit the first game out. It's going to be Derek Forbert and Elias Patterson on the third pair, based on what we saw at practice today at Rogers Arena. The thing I'm curious, Harm, is it going to be a bit of a rotation? Like, are we going to see Victor Mancini maybe get game 2 against Edmonton or game 3? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I wonder if it's going to be Patterson and Mancini kind of swapping in and out, or is it Forbert that gets a night off? Maybe that's more down the line, but start the season without P.O. Joseph. And again, we don't know how long he's going to be out for. And however long he's out for, that's how long Mancini will be on the roster, right? So will we see them kind of swap guys out? Because again, I would like to see Victor Mancini get into games. I want Elias Patterson to play as well. But what I don't want is either of those guys just sitting in the press box.
Well, the original plan was Mancini being down in Abbotsford and Joseph being the seventh defenseman. And if that had been the case, if Joseph was still healthy, we weren't going to have a discussion of, oh, is Joseph going to be rotating in for one of those guys? The assumption was just going to be your third pair's Forbert and DPD, and those guys are going to roll and get a pretty long leash. So I don't imagine that just because Joseph's hurt now and Mancini's back up, that he's immediately a lock to dress for game 2. Because if they wanted to have Mancini part of the rotation, they would have made him one of the 7 defensemen part of the roster, and they would have waived P.O. Joseph. So
or gone with AD like they did last year.
Yeah, so I would expect DPD to have a bit of a leash, but like he knows too that he can't have a situation where he struggles for too long, knowing that Mancini had a strong preseason and is knocking on the door.
All right, let's save a conversation about the lines for later. I want to dive into it a little bit, but I did want to play this clip from Patrick Allvin. He spoke with media after practice, and he talked about Coots and Lekkerimäki. I want to hear that clip, want to react to it real quick, and then we're going to get J-Pat on. So let's hear what the Canucks GM said about Braden Coots and Jonathan Lekkerimäki, the 2 youngsters making the Canucks roster.
Yeah, we owe it to Braden, obviously, that he earned his way to be here today. And looking like he's playing on Thursday. But I think we got to be a little bit careful here and evaluate as we go along. No difference from what we have done since he earned his first game in Seattle and continued to earn another day. So he's young, but he's playing a very, very mature game. So we'll see here as we move along. Really well too. I think he learned a lot being in the American League last year, getting a taste of the National Hockey League. Had a really short but good summer, came in good shape here, and I think he just continued to grow every day in camp. Seems to have different swagger and confidence, and I like how Evander Kane has helped the young guys there on that line.
Evander Kane getting a shout out on that line. I really like that trio. Coots, Lekermaki, Kane. And look, none of us saw that coming when we were doing our line combination shows in the summer. We were nobody ever put together Kane, Coots, Lekermaki, but that's been an interesting trio, I think, through the preseason. That's one that's caught my attention. And the other thing I wanted to single out from that clip, the answer that Alvin gave on Coots, I believe, was to a question about like, oh, do you think he's going to stay for the full 82? And it wasn't worded exactly like that, but that was kind of the context of the answer. And I think Alvin did a really good job of just saying like, yeah, he's really impressive and they're giving him his flowers, but also let's have him earn each day. Because I think that needs to be the mentality heading into this 9-game audition for Braden Coots.
Yeah, I think it'd be over optimistic to think just because he made the opening night roster that he's going to be a full-time NHL player the whole season. Taking it day by day, that is absolutely the best approach. And pretty quickly, you're going to figure out whether Coots would benefit from going back to junior or where exactly he's at. Regular season games are going to be the real litmus test. And if Coots ends up in a scenario where he is averaging 10 minutes of ice time through his first 3 or 4 games and struggles to generate offense and maybe has a couple learning moments defensively, well, then the answer will be pretty clear on what they should do with Coots. But on the other hand, if he's able to sustain what he did in the preseason and is able to hold his own in the third line spot, well, then it becomes an interesting conversation and perhaps a debate, but that's more of you'll cross that bridge when you get there.
Well, it's time to get there. I love it. All right, let's get to Jeff, who's brought to you by our friends at Uber Eats. The NHL season is ramping up and Canucks Army's pumped to be partnering with Uber Eats all season long to deliver hockey fans the ultimate game day experience. The best matchups on the ice are made even better with top pairings and exclusive game day offers on Uber Eats. We can't wait to get downtown to the home opener on Thursday this week. Uber Eats is doing something big for Canucks fans, so come hang with us and Uber Eats to celebrate the return of Canucks hockey. Canucks Army is going to be right there in the mix as well. So if you're heading to the game, make sure to drop by after 12:30 p.m. around Rogers Arena to hang out with us and get in on the excitement Uber Eats is building. Uber Eats is enabling fans to maximize their fandom all season long with exclusive game day deals on the app, starting on home opener game night, where they can get anything, almost anything. Truly, from game day eats to paper plates and napkins if you're hosting, to all the ingredients you need to make your favorite game day dip before, during, and after the game, Uber Eats is assisting every fan's hockey experience all season long. All right, Jeff Patterson, the author of Scenes from Morning Skate over at CanucksArmy.com. Jeff, a lot to get to today, it feels like, from Morning Skate, and I'd like to do this with you, Jeff. I'm going to leave it open. What caught your eye on the ice or off the ice when you were talking with Patrick Alvin?
Oh, first things first, it was practice quads. It was scenes from practice.
Oh, that's right.
You're getting excited. I know you're revved up. Game one's just around the corner. There will be a Scenes from Morning Skate. I can tell you the Florida Panthers are raising their banner right this moment, just beyond my computer screen. I'm keeping an eye on the banner going. I'm a sucker for opening night and all the pomp and circumstance. And I got a kick out of the fact that like, all the guys that were part of it are all sort of locked in arms watching it go up. And then a couple of the new players that weren't part, they're over by the bench. Like they don't get to be part of, I mean, they're there, but they're not really part of what's going on. First of all, Canucks they were wearing black, and all of the nameplates and everything in the locker room is black, which would indicate to me 48 hours from opening night that they're going to roll out the blacks against the Flames. I haven't seen a schedule for the black jerseys, but I did see Thatcher Demko last week when they were still skating in 2 groups. He was in the second group of the day, and he was wearing like a blue practice jersey and blue pants, but he was working in his black pads and the black kit. It was quite a look with the black and the blue. But so that gave me an indication that, okay, he's busting in some new gear at some point. But yeah, I mean, that was one of the things when I walked in today and they were in their black practice outfits that I guess they're probably rolling them out for opening night. Beyond that, wanted to see who was on the ice, who wasn't. We saw Derek Forbort among the first guys. That was his first skate in a while since the Calgary game last week in Calgary. So almost a week off the ice for Derek Forbort, but he looks ready to go. And then no sign of Teddy Bluger for the second straight game. I saw him out at UBC on the weekend with his leg fairly heavily wrapped. And so to hear that he's out a week, not a surprise, but I feel for the guy. Remember, 2 years ago, he got hurt quite badly in the final preseason game and missed the first 6 weeks of his time as a member of the Vancouver Canucks. And then he came back, and in the game that he came back, Pius Suter got injured, and it took those guys like 2.5 months to ever play together in the same game. So history repeating itself a little bit for Teddy Bluger. Maybe he should sit out the final preseason game next year if he's still around here. But you guys talked about it. It leaves a hole, and it puts pressure immediately on a guy like Aatu Ratu, but also Elias Patterson if he's going to be one of the penalty-killing forwards. So something to watch here. Might be able to get by without too much worry on Thursday against Calgary. And I see that Jonathan Huberdeau is not going to play for the Flames, injured in that game against the Canucks last week. So that's a blow to them. And we've already documented the fact that they're here on the back half of back-to-backs. But Saturday against Edmonton, and then, St. Louis can score some goals on Monday afternoon. And then the first game of the road trip is Dallas. So who knows when Bluger's back, but there's going to be some challenges. And that penalty kill is absolutely going to be tested early on in the season. So something to watch right off the bat. The other thing that caught my attention, I guess, was just keeping an eye on Braden Coots and doing his thing. He was out there on the second power play unit. So looks like he's going to get an opportunity to run with the power play. We'll see how much time the second unit gets. Perfect world. The first unit would score all the goals and they wouldn't need a second power play unit, but it's not a perfect world. And so we'll see how that plays out on Thursday night. It was funny after practice. We talked to Coots. Somebody asked him, how did you find out, for sure that you had made it? Because Monday was a day off. We talked to him on Sunday and he was sort of on pins and needles, but he was still around that late into the preseason. And he said Patrick Allvin phoned him on Monday afternoon, gave him the good news, delivered him the news that he wanted, that, hey, you're here. And I think probably told him that he was going to play on Thursday as well. So he said that started the ball rolling to phone family and friends, and they don't have too far to come from Sherwood Park. So there will be a Braden Coots cheering section at Rogers Arena on Thursday night, without a doubt.
When you step back and look at camp and preseason as a whole, what's your vibe check around the team? How do you feel about their chances of hitting the ground running? And gun to your head, if you had to pick, are the Canucks making the playoffs this year or not?
Well, vibes is a great word because it's been used around this group. And look, optimism abounds in all 32 camps right now. They do. Nobody's lost a game yet. Chicago is probably going to here in a matter of hours as they open down in Florida. But, teams always go in. They think they've made moves and had good camps. But I think the Canucks have. You guys were there in Penticton. I thought camp went about as smoothly as it could have for a first-year head coach and a new coaching staff. And then through the preseason, more wins than losses. Not that that matters. Ultimately, there's no points, but you want to have that winning feeling. You want to start to cement some of the things, the way that they play, the process, if you will. On Sunday out at UBC, they look like a bunch of kids. They were having the time of their life on, a Sunday, a sunny Sunday, where they probably would have rather been anywhere, but they were on the ice, a handful of days before the season opener, and they just all seem like they're in really good moods and in good form. And so I'm excited. We've seen, though, in years gone by that what happens at this time, and then, you start playing for keeps, and Bruce Boudreau was all about the good vibes, and we remember how the one season started under him. So, you do turn the page and everything gets ramped up. But I do like the fact that they get the Flames here, having played the night before. It's there on a tee for the Vancouver Canucks to hit the ground running, use home ice. And look, they have to be better at home this year, right? 17 wins in 41 games. That's an area that I think we should all be marking pretty closely. And can only play them one at a time, but they're going to have to get that win total up into the 20s on home ice. The overtime record last year as well, 12 overtime losses. If they can cut that and pick up a few more points. On Sekeres and Price, I said 96 points was the prediction. So I guess I got to be consistent. The stuff is all marked for posterity now. I can't have two different predictions on two different shows. So I think at 96, Harvey, you take your chances. And a lot of years that would get you in. I sort of see this team as a wild card. And if Thatcher Demko can beat Thatcher Demko, and if Quinn Hughes dials the way that he does most nights, and if EP40 can give them a whole lot more than he did last year, I think they can be a playoff team. So I want to cover playoff hockey. I'm going to lean towards that right now, and we'll let the season play out. But yeah, I want to be around. I want to cover this team when they're in the postseason and the city's ramped up. So I will say they squeak in to the playoffs.
We were talking about Teddy Bluger going down. Achu obviously is going to benefit from that, but the penalty kill is one thing we were just discussing. I'm not going to ask you, who should kill penalties? The question I really have is, like, when you look at this team, yeah, the vibes are really good. What's your biggest question mark? Because I think heading into the preseason, probably like, how are they going to score goals? Is it still that for you? Has it changed? What's your biggest question mark heading into this year when you look at this team?
Yeah, I think sustained offense. I mean, they were 23rd in the NHL in raw goals for last year, so bottom a third of the National Hockey League. They didn't do anything in the offseason to churn the roster. They're buying into this bounce back factor, and part of the bounce back was Nils Höglander from 8 goals, trying to get close to 24. He's 24 a few years ago, and obviously he's going to be out close to Christmas. So that's one sort of strike against them. So much of this discussion centers around Elias Patterson. We know that. Brock Boeser needs service. Like, he isn't a guy that's going to create and take the puck end to end. And so if you believe that Brock Boeser is going to be a 30-goal scorer, he's going to need somebody to get him the puck. And that somebody right now is Elias Patterson. Jake DeBrusk, can he back up the 28 goals? I still believe that at some point over the contract, he'll have a 30-plus goal season. Is it this one? Who knows? But, can he repeat all the greasy goals in the blue paint on power play? We'll see about that. Then, I guess you go down the roster, and Philip Petel's obviously a wild card. Lecker-Mackey the other night, incredible. So he can maybe pick up some of the slack there. But I just think on a nightly basis, goal scoring might be an issue. And I'm sort of prepared to see them try to grind out a bunch of victories on the backs of really strong goaltending and a solid defense core. The best defense that they've had in a decade at least. Maybe they move the puck up faster and they're able to get to the attack. They were fun to watch in the preseason. And so is that a sign of things to come? Fingers crossed, but I guess I'll believe it when I see it, and you're playing for keeps against other teams that are ramping things up for the regular season as well. So if there's a concern there, I think a lot of it is the same from the summertime. Depth down the middle and just overall offensive generation. I fully believe in Quinn Hughes, but we saw last year that Quinn was able to outpace his teammates by 26 points. They can't have that happen again. Like, Quinn can have an incredible season, but hopefully he can raise the offensive levels of, everybody else around him. They're not going to get to the playoffs if their top scorer among forwards has 50 points like they did last year.
J-Pat, you've covered a lot of training camps, a lot of preseasons. We're obviously talking a lot about Lecker-Mackey and Coots hitting the ground running in preseason. Based on your experience, how often do you see sort of around the league when a young guy sort of maybe unexpectedly has a strong preseason? How often does it sort of translate? Should we be taking their success with a grain of salt because it's preseason? Because it's interesting. You go through recent preseason scoring leaders, and it's an interesting mix, because on the one hand, you do have the typical superstars that you would expect. Guys like Quinn Hughes putting up 6 points in 3 games, but then you also have guys like Jack Studnicka this preseason, 4 goals in 5 games, that like every year they're just random no names that pop off in preseason. And then when the games count, it doesn't really translate. So with your experience, I'm curious to get your take on how much this actually matters.
Yeah, probably not a lot. I think back to Steve Correa and Sergei Shirokov, going way back. Guys that lit it up in the preseason, and then you start playing for keeps. Everybody ramps it up. Everybody's icing their best lineup, and it's just not the same. And so, look, Braden Coots is going to get tested. This is like the jungle, man. Like, nobody's taking it easy on him just because he's 18. He's wearing a Canucks jersey. He's in the NHL. And that guys are going to want to welcome him to the big leagues and test him and see if there's, where is his mettle and is there pushback on his side. And Lekkerimäki had a fine preseason, but he's not a big guy. And so he talked last year about the wear and tear and sort of felt like 2 seasons of hockey and that kind of stuff. He only played 24 games in the NHL. Like, if he's here for the long haul, it's going to feel like a long season as well. So these guys are all elite level athletes. They're constantly training and taking care of their bodies. But, we always say it's a marathon, and it is. So, it is funny, Harm. Like, I saw Jack Studnicka scored in overtime. Like, what's Jack Studnicka doing in overtime in any kind of game? But look, good on him. But this sport is so bizarre, and sometimes you just want to pull out your hair. I think a guy like Mate Blumel, who was in Texas last year, and I know you guys wrote about him as a possible waiver claim for team. Like, he led the American Hockey League in goals last year, and you just think, if you can do that at the AHL level, like, how is that not transferable? He gets waived in Boston, but he's not starting the year with the Bruins, and so it's just so hard to sort of project from what we see in the preseason. And obviously effort level, the desperation on some guys, they realize that maybe, hey, this is their last chance. And I don't know if that's in Studnicka's case, but whatever, he took advantage of an opportunity there. But yeah, I'm a believer that you have to sort of flush everything that we've seen. Everybody lines up in the starting gate and away they go, starting today or tomorrow, or in the Canucks case, on Thursday.
Jeff, Archer Sheilov starts tonight. Hoping it goes better than last time he started a season opener, but I'm just looking at it and saying, you get to see Archer Sheelovs, you get to see JT Miller. Archer Sheelovs has the chance to do the funniest thing imaginable and just spoil the JT Miller being named captain parade in New York.
Remember JT's season opener last year, the Gordie Howe hat trick. He had that massive hit. Was it on Kevin Rooney? I was glad that Rooney wasn't out long term, because he got absolutely caught in the tracks there, just inside the Calgary blue line.
Big game for the Canucks. They lose 6-5.
Exactly. Well, it was fun. It was there was a lot going on that night. Yeah, we'll see what happens. They get the Flames again. But interesting, you talk about goaltending, and I know in previous weeks when I've come on and I've sort of given Thatcher Demko the big thumbs up, and that continues. Thought he was really good the other night against the Oilers. As much as you were trying to blow up the Canucks lineup already, Dave, on the weekend and get Victor Mancini in there, if they win their opener, they're coming back with the same lineup on Saturday, unless there's injuries. But I am curious about the goaltending rotation. I mean, obviously all eyes on Thatcher Demko sort of every night. How does he come through it? Is he healthy? What's the workload there? But I think, I'm certain that it's going to be Demko on Thursday. I would think that it's Demko Thursday, Saturday, and then a funky 4:30 start on Monday against St. Louis is probably Kevin Lankinen, and then that would allow Demko to play in Dallas at the start of the road trip, and they go back to back. You get Lankinen into Chicago, and then take it from there. I mean, Demko's got to come through all those games healthy and be available to them, but I don't think it's as simple as a rotation right off the bat. Although, remember 2 years ago, when Thatcher Demko didn't finish that 8-1 romp over the Oilers on opening night because of dehydration, and Casey DeSmith had to go into Edmonton. We all thought, oh my goodness, like, what a way to start your Canuck career. And he was terrific that night, and they ended up winning. So early season, who knows? But my hunch, and it's all it is right now, but if it were me making the call and Demko gets through opening night, I'd probably run him the first 2 and go with Lankinen at home against St. Louis on Monday afternoon.
Jeff, great stuff as always. We'll be reading. We'll be listening. Talk to you soon.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks.
There he is, Jeff Patterson. Watch his work. Listen to his work. Rink-wide Vancouver postgame, along with Irfan Ghaffar. And, of course, CanucksArmy.com. You can find scenes from Morning Skate and scenes from practice, which is what went up today. All right, let's get to our poll question, Harm. A Harman Dial feature poll question, all right? Harman came up with this one. I'm very proud of him. Harman, you want to do the ad read for it?
Absolutely not. I don't have the script in front of me.
You don't need a script, because we're talking about Greta, which, as we know by now, is a great spot for all games, home and away. And speaking of away games, October 11th, Edmonton, Vancouver, we are having our first watch party of the year. Free entry. Get your spot, get your ticket for free at nationgear.com. Doors open at 6 p.m. Puck drop is at 7 p.m. I've had people asking, so we've got these great deals. Obviously, we got the 333 highballs, the 333 off of the food, which includes the Greta burger, which is phenomenal. Harman, you've had the Greta burger. You know it's phenomenal as well. People are asking, what do I do there? You enjoy the arcade. You bring your friends, sit down, right? You watch the game because there's so many screens around. You'll have a view of the game and there's sound on. It's not like we're watching it on mute. We get a whole side of Greta taped off for us, for just us, and we watch the game and you're with Canucks fans. And this is the best part. When the Canucks score a goal, the red light goes on in the bar and then the goal song plays. The horn and the song play. I'm not doing it justice, but it's a ton of fun. It's a great time. So make sure you come on out. Enjoy the arcade games. Hang out with us. Come say hi. Like, seriously, especially at this event. Come say hi to us. Introduce yourself. I got to last time I went, I was sitting with 4 of our listeners. So shout out to everyone who comes out, and I want to see a lot of faces at the first Greta game day of the year, October 11th. Come on out. Do you know I didn't follow a script there?
That's pretty impressive.
I just
Off
went.
the
That
cuff,
was
wow.
from the heart. Yeah. So my brother got married on Friday. I talked about this, and I know I should say this to someone else, but my brother got married on Friday. I went off the cuff on his wedding speech. I wrote down my wedding speech because I was like, "Oh, my wedding day, I got to be," and you were there. I was
Yeah.
kind of reading off the page. I don't love doing that, but for my brothers and for Chris Faber, when I did his wedding, I just went off the cuff, and I don't know, man. I do so much better going off the cuff. Maybe not for an ad read where it's like
I would need the
sponsor
structure.
needs me to hit on things. No, I don't need structure. I literally just went vibes.
Bruce
And
Boudreau vibes hockey, no structure.
yeah,
Just
and
off
it
the
went
cuff.
great. It went great. Like I honestly, I would take those speeches that I did at Faber's wedding and at my brother's wedding than the one I did at my wedding. Because the one at my wedding, I was reading off a page like some chump. I don't know. I didn't like
I
it.
think what we're getting at is you're more of a Bruce Boudreau player and I'm more of a Rick Tocchet player. Give
Yeah.
me the lines. I don't like to color outside of them. Give me very clear parameters, and I thrive in that environment. But you're more of you would thrive under Bruce, which I think kind of makes sense.
You're Noah Juleson. I'm Andre Kuzmenko.
Wow.
What?
You can't give you the Noah Juleson, dude.
Who is a more of a Rick Tocchet player than Noah Juleson?
You're calling me a liability?
I didn't say that.
Wow,
That's
that might be the most insulting thing you've ever said to me.
Calling him Noah Juleson? Who's more of a
Not
Rick
even
Tocchet
like a
player than that?
PDG. That's at least a little more respectable. But Noah Juleson, I
But
mean,
Noah Juleson's more than PDG. Like PDG didn't follow Rick Tocchet to Philly. Juleson did.
he's not
the
good though.
ultimate Rick Tocchet-
He's
that's
not
the
good
ultimate
though.
Rick Tocchet player. That's the ultimate Rick Tocchet player.
Let's scrap that. Let's move on.
All right. Our poll question. Like I said, Harman came up with this one. Let's get to it. It is about the Canucks and their chances of making the playoffs. And really, and you brought this up yesterday, Harman. I think it was a really good point. There's 10 teams that are going to be in the running for a playoff spot, and not all of them can make it. So we asked today, which West playoff team from last year is most likely to miss the postseason in 25-26? The Blues, the Wild, or the Kings? Leading the way with 46.2% of the vote is the LA Kings. 36.8% say the Blues, 16% say the Wild, and 0.9% say other. What say you, Harm?
This is a really tough one. I lean ever so slightly towards St. Louis, but that's not a very confident pick. I mean, I like all of these 3 teams on paper. And like you said, the way that I look at the Western Conference right now, there are 10 teams that, including the Canucks, appear playoff caliber. And there are only 8 playoff spots to go around. And I think the league's in a really interesting spot because there isn't much parity when it comes to actual cup contenders. You look at the last few years and it's more or less been the same group of teams that make, the conference finals. And when you go through cup contenders around the league, it's the same, like Edmonton, Florida, Vegas, Dallas, Carolina, like that handful of teams. But then when you go conference by conference, that's where there's a little bit more parity, where even in the Eastern Conference, there are 10 or 11 teams that you think could realistically make the playoffs. And the margins are so fine that it's a lot of it is going to come down to injury luck, and just which teams unexpectedly sort of have things go wrong Because again, in the West, I think there are 10 teams that are playoff caliber on paper.
I'm with you, and I think the Blues is my answer as well. But I'm gonna give you a way hotter take. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be the Blues and the Kings that don't make it. But I think there's going to be a third team that's not on that poll question that does it. Okay, maybe not doesn't make it, but I think a team that's going to have a fall off that nobody's really talking about enough. The Winnipeg Jets. Like, I'm looking at their forward group, and I know they've got Connor Hellebuck and that he's phenomenal in the regular season. And he's gonna win them games single-handedly. I know that. But like, look at the Jets forward group. They've got Jonathan Taves as their second line center. Gus Nyquist is on that line with them, Chibrikov as well, and that's just the second line that I'm looking at. Tanner Pearson's in their lineup. I'm not very high on the Jets this year. Not that I was extremely high on them last year, but like, again, they had guys who had really good years last year, and I think a mix of those guys not being able to repeat. It's kind of like when I talk about the Calgary Flames, where I'm like, okay, they had a lot of guys have really, really solid years, and I don't think there's enough underneath those guys to give them that extra oomph if those guys aren't performing at their best. And again, I'm not going to sit here and come out with a prediction like, oh, the Jets are going to miss the playoffs. That's not going to happen. They're going to be worse than last year. I think they might be a wild card team. That's as far as I'll go.
Well, the Jets are a candidate to, like, we can project playoff locks, try and go through the West, what teams are for sure making it. And normally you'd have a team like Winnipeg in that conversation because they made the President's Trophy. But also last year, most people would have had the Vancouver Canucks in that conversation. And not just people in Vancouver, but Dom's model over at The Athletic had the Canucks rated as the 5th best team in the league. Their playoff odds were sky high, as were the betting lines that Vegas had set for the Canucks' chances of making the playoffs. Nobody expected the Canucks to be maybe a wild card team. They were more or less considered a lock after winning the division in 23-24 and making it to Game 7 of Round 2. But the perfect storm of everything going wrong meant that they sort of fell out of it. When the Jets are healthy, even after losing Ehlers, they are 100% still a playoff team, but they've already been hammered by injuries, right? It's Cole Perfetti's out. They're going to have to deal with no Nick Ehlers for a full season, obviously. And then this is the one that I think people are underrating. Dylan Sandberg is going to miss the first several weeks of the season. Dylan Sandberg was a massive part, probably the most underrated player on that Jets team. He was the anchor on that blue line outside of Josh Morrissey. He's their equivalent to Chris Tanev. He's their Tanev, McDonough, Travis Sanheim, where just an elite shutdown defenseman. And because he doesn't put up the flashy point totals, I don't think people outside of Winnipeg realize how important he is to that team, because he also unlocks the best of Neil Pionk. And so without Sandberg, all of a sudden that Jets bottom 4, and you look at Winnipeg's record last year when Sandberg got hurt for a stretch, their record dipped quite a bit. Not having Sandberg, having Taves as your 2C, no Cole Perfetti, no Adam Lowry, they could get off to a slow start unless Hellebuck is sensational. And again, that doesn't mean they're going to miss the playoffs, but could they do what the Oilers did the last couple of years where they stumble out of the gate? It wouldn't surprise me.
Speaking of teams stumbling out of the gate, S. Little Boston brought this up. He said, look how much the Bruins and Rangers dropped after their huge seasons. Rajcraft said, remember how everyone thought Nashville would be good last year? Not quite what we're doing right now, but appreciate you chiming in there, Rajcraft. That's a good comment. But yeah, like the Bruins and Rangers, again, you look at teams that we thought would be a lot better than they ended up being last year. And again, I'm not saying that I think the Jets are going to miss. I just think they're going to be worse than people think. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I don't think that's a hot take at all. The hot take would be if you're predicting they miss the playoffs, which, I mean, again, if you're talking about a perfect storm of everything going wrong, imagine, let's map out the worst case scenario for the Jets, because Worst case scenarios don't happen often, but as we saw with the Canucks last year, they can happen.
Yeah, it's Hellebuyck getting hurt.
Imagine, well, no, not even, I'm not even going to factor in additional injuries beyond this. Let's say
Sure.
because they've lost their second best defenseman in Sandberg for the first several weeks, because Cole Perfetti is also out for the first several weeks, and because you listed that second line on paper, you got a 37-year-old Jonathan Toews who hasn't played in a regular season game in 2 years, Nikita Shibrikov, who's an unproven rookie, and Gus Nyquist, who's also old and is coming off an underwhelming year, and no Adam Lowry, who's an elite third line center as well. Let's say they stumble out of the gate. And then when certain guys come back from their injuries, it can take them. It's not just, there's a difference between being healthy enough to return to the lineup and being healthy enough to get back to 100%, especially when you've missed the start of the season. So once you factor in, all right, maybe there's a bit of an adjustment period as those guys get up to top gear. Well, then there's also Kyle Connor's contract situation. And look, by all accounts, where it seems like both sides want to get an extension done, but how much does the Kirill Kaprizov extension complicate things for the Winnipeg Jets? Like, that's not a favorable comp for them. And I know McDavid came down to 12.5 by 2, but let's be honest, I don't think that's going to put downward pressure on the side of Kyle Connor's camp, especially when Winnipeg is a tough time attracting free agents. But anyway, point being, in a potential worst case scenario, imagine your team is struggling and gets off to a bad start, and you're uncertain about whether you're going to be able to re-sign Connor, and you can't afford to lose him for nothing like you did with Nick Ehlers. Like, that would be the roadmap for them potentially completely missing. The way that, Vancouver did, the way the Rangers, after winning the President's Trophy, they won the President's Trophy in 23-24 and had everything go wrong and missed the playoffs. Again, that's not what I'm predicting for the Jets, but they're at least worth watching to see if they start slow. And look, if Hellebuyck plays like he did last year, none of this is going to matter anyway, because he's single-handedly going to win them enough games. But at least keep an eye on the Jets.
Okay, let's get to anyone else. Did you have anything else you want to say about the playoff competition stuff?
Well, no, I was just going to say, I mean, as optimistic as Canucks fans feel, it's like when I look at LA, Minnesota, and St. Louis on paper, and we haven't even talked about Utah, I would feel very optimistic if I was fans of those teams as well. If you want to go through it, I mean, the Wild, for example, they made the playoffs 4 out of the last 5 years, right? They've established a pretty consistent floor or at least making the playoffs. And they made it last year despite being just as unlucky as the Canucks were injuries-wise, where Kaprizov missed 41 games, and he's as important to Minnesota as Quinn Hughes is to Vancouver. Eric Sinek, the number one center, missed nearly half the season. On the blue line, Brodin only played 50 games. Spurgeon played less than 70. That's 2 of your top 4 defensemen. Not to mention this year, you've got Zeev Buum coming, who could instantly power play one quarterback, an instant top 4 defender. And just on paper, their top end forward group is better than Vancouver's when you're led by Kaprizov and Matt Boldy, and your back end is still pretty good, presuming you're able to stay healthy. And then, if you're a Blues fan, right? Blues fans are looking at it and going, well, from the date Jim Montgomery took over, we had the 7th best record in the NHL. And this wasn't just a Bruce Boudreau bump where it was heavily inflated by goaltending and some shooting luck. Their 5-on-5 underlying numbers in terms of controlling expected goals improved immensely. You saw by the end of last year, they were a high-end team defensively, and their top 9 looks pretty nasty on paper, right? Look through St. Louis's top 9. I know they don't have the flashy McDavid level superstars, but Robert Thomas played at a 95-point pace last year. Pavel Buchnevich would probably be the best winger on the Canucks if he was here. Jimmy Snuggerud, who wasn't even on the roster until the tail end of last year, was one of the top scorers in college hockey last year and is a top 5 contender for the Calder Trophy this year. Their second line last year was one of the best in the NHL because you had Dylan Holloway, who was a near point per game guy once Montgomery got hired, and Kyrou scored 36 goals for you. And then even their third line has Jake Neighbors on it, 22 goal scorer, young guy too, and Pius Suter, who they just picked up. That's a pretty deep top 9 group. that it's a lot better than Vancouver's, to be totally honest with you. And of course, yeah, like Vancouver has a better blue line than St. Louis, no doubt. But the point being, like, if you're a Blues fan, you're feeling pretty optimistic about a full year of Jim Montgomery, and then that's before we even talk about Utah's upside case.
That's a really good point. I didn't even think about that with the Blues. They are certainly going to be a good team this year.
The thing that worries me with the Canucks is, like, on paper, if you could tell me all these teams would stay healthy for all 82 games, I would have the Canucks as a playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'd be able to do it, provided they got decent goaltending. But I just think they're at risk of more going wrong than teams like St. Louis and Minnesota because of, like, Demko's health. It really worries me. I know when he's healthy, he's one of the top goaltenders in the league, but I just don't know if he can make it through a full season staying healthy now. Elias Patterson, I still don't know until he shows us in regular season games that he's a number one center. That's still going to be a question mark, especially for a team that otherwise had no forwards at the 55-point mark last year. Filipino, when he's healthy, I like him a lot, and I think he can be a perfectly fine low-end second-line centerman, but the concussion history really worries me, and you're one bad hit to heedle away from what? Aturatu is your second-line center? 18-year-old Braden Coots as your second-line center? That really worries me. So it's just, there are more question marks and more things that could go wrong for this team, especially health-wise, compared to teams like Minnesota and St. Louis. And that's why, honestly, it's been really difficult for me to decisively pick whether I see the Canucks making the playoffs this year or not. Because, again, on paper, if you told me this roster is going to stay healthy and we're assuming an even playing field health-wise for all the teams in the West, I would say, yeah, I think Vancouver squeaks in and makes it. But the health aspect, just especially with Demko and Hedl, worries me.
Fair enough. I wrote an article today at Canucks Army, and I wanted to basically just, like, kind of contextualize what the Canucks looked like at this time last year, because it feels like a big kind of narrative in the fan base was like, well, they didn't do anything this offseason to improve this team. And again, like, I know the moves on paper might be minimal, and Lekkerimäki and Coots are going to make it look different, obviously. But I feel like it's just important to remember that, like, they did some of their roster fixing, and to be clear, fixing issues that they created. Nobody put a gun to their head and said, you got to sign Denton Heinen. You have to sign, what's that other guy's name? The tall guy, Vincent Desharnais, and Daniel Sprung. Like, no one said you had to do that. So they did it. Those turned out to be mistakes. And I think people kind of forget that a lot of the issues last year, especially out of the gate, we were talking about how like immobile the defense was. So I just want to quickly rattle this off. Okay. The Canucks opening night defense group. This is the big focus, I think. Hughes Hronek, obviously. Susie Myers, Forbert Desharnais, and then you had Mark Friedman and Noah Juleson as your extras. They ran with 8Ds last year. They didn't get the version of Susie that they had in 23-24. Let's be honest. He wasn't good last season. They lose Ian Cole and Nikita Zadorov, who made everybody learn just how important it is to be really good and deceptive on your puck retrievals, because the guys that they got weren't. They lose Zadorov, they lose Ian Cole, and they feel the effects of it. Like, I think that's the simplest way to put it. That bottom four defense group was a mess. And Tyler Myers, if he didn't, put it this way, in 23-24, you got the best version of Tyler Myers because Susie was playing really well, I think. Tail end of last year, you got a really good version of Tyler Myers because Marcus Patterson was playing well. Like, Myers needs a good partner to play with him. And you look to have that in Marcus Patterson, but they didn't have it in Susie. So, not remembering that they ran with that defense group. I know we're talking opening night rosters. They ran with that defense group through January. Like, that was the defense. And they were just trying to tread water, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't create off the rush. They couldn't move the puck out of their own end. And of course, now we know this is a different looking defense group. Marcus Patterson with Myers, Forbert with Elias Pettersson, P.O. Joseph, not to mention the fact you've got Victor Mancini knocking on the door. You've got Tom Willander. It's not Noah Juleson or Mark Friedman coming into the lineup. And this isn't really a Mark Friedman pick on thing. It's more Noah Juleson. Like, Juleson was playing top 4 minutes for this team last season. That's not going to happen this year. You've got a Victor Mancini. You've got Willander. You've got these young, exciting defensemen kind of pushing up from the bottom. So I think that's worth mentioning on defense. Up at forward, you had Danton Heinen and Daniel Sprong in the top 6 on opening night. Yes, I know they lost JT Miller, but I would also mention that that wasn't the version of JT Miller that scored 30-plus goals for the Canucks. That wasn't the JT Miller that they got last year. So again, I think it's just worth mentioning that, yeah, on paper, when you look at what they finished the season with and what they're starting with, they didn't have a healthy Quinn Hughes down the stretch. We've never seen Marcus Patterson play with a healthy Quinn Hughes to this point. And I'm really, again, I know I'm higher on them than others, but like, we're talking point predictions. Write this down, Jacob. This team is going to get 99 points or more this season. You can write that down. That's a prediction. I don't think they're a wildcard team. I think they finish second or third in the Pacific this season. I think they're going to surprise.
I don't see them finishing second, man.
You didn't see them finishing first when they finished first.
Yeah, but okay, you're going to bet on another shooting percentage historic PDO bender?
No, I didn't say they're going to finish first. They don't have to go on a historic PDO bender to get second or third in the Pacific Division. They don't. They don't, man.
Third, I can see. Second,
Sure.
You think they're going to finish
second is a little rosy. Sure. Second's a little rosy, even for my liking.
It sounds pretty homer.
But third? Like, we can't see third. This is a team
third.
that gets
I'm not arguing against third.
99 points. Write it down,
I'm not
Jacob.
arguing against third at all.
Write it down, Jacob. 99 points and write down.
You are right about the blue line aspect, though. Like, that's one of the biggest reasons to be optimistic, and it's why it's not as simple as, oh, they're just running back the same roster that they had last year, except Kane is in, except Kane is in for a Suter, and you got a couple of the young guys making it. We didn't really get a chance to see what the complete blue line looks like, because when we saw the upgraded bottom four, that's when Quinn Hughes was in and out of the lineup. And even when he was playing, I pointed this out before, the Canucks were being outscored during his 5-on-5 minutes down the stretch because he was understandably playing through all those ailments. So that's going to have to be the engine of this team. The blue line is legitimately, like, easily a top 10 blue line in the NHL. And yeah, I mean, if you combine that with, we've talked about it many times before, the goaltending holding up, then that's the bold case for this Canucks team.
Now, I'll tell you another thing that I wrote in this article as well, just thinking about it. Like, what did we learn in this preseason? This forward group is much faster than last year. And I don't think we needed the preseason to know that. Like, we knew when they got Philip Hedl and they got Drew O'Connor. Like, as soon as they traded for those guys, it was like, oh, the Canucks' 2 new fastest forwards, according to NHL Edge, are the 2 guys that they just
I would pump the brakes on that, though, because last year in preseason, we were talking about, oh, they look a lot faster, too, because they got Kiefer Sherwood, and they got, like, dude, go back and read, and especially...
No, you're right. You're right.
Especially after the first period of the Flames season opener, when they scored the 3 goals, it was like, whoa, this Canucks team looks fast. They're creating off the rush, so let's pump the brakes on that.
Okay, but they are faster. They are a faster team than they were at the start of last season. That's just.
I mean, maybe they maybe not for sure.
No, they are.
Not for sure. They also brought in Evander Kane, who's not exactly the fastest guy. Now that was lateral because Suter, who's a slower guy, also left. But they're up front. I don't know that they're necessarily a lot faster. They're a bit quicker, but I'm just saying, like, let's wait to see regular season games.
You're just mad that Sweet Wheels Niels Amon didn't make the team like he did last year. Okay. I was supposed to do an anyone else read. This was an anyone else thing I had written down, but I went ahead and just said it without introducing anyone else. So the past 10 minutes, retroactive, have been anyone else, which is presented by Pacific Toyota dealers and the Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid, a no-compromise approach to electric vehicles that offers the best of both worlds. Drive up to 72 kilometers on battery alone, and then seamlessly transition from electric mode to the gas engine for a combined range of 962 kilometers. No sacrifices when it comes to horsepower or style with its sleek, low, and wide exterior and sophisticated interior. Loaded with tech that's actually easy to use, plug in to recharge at home or at one of the 2,000 public charging stations in BC alone. And now you can lease a 2025 Prius plug-in hybrid SE from $99 weekly at 3.49% APR for 60 months with $3,800 down. And it includes a $3,000 discount. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. I want to start anyone else with this. Where'd it go? Alec Taylor said, off of Quad's recommendation, I went to see a C's game where Trey Savage was pitching, and now I'm actually watching playoff baseball. So thank you. It's cool to see. I love this. This is great. I was saying, what did I say, Harm? I said, go watch Trey Savage while you still can. This kid's going to the big leagues. I didn't think it would happen in the same season, but it's happened. And you had your chance to watch him in Vancouver. There's going to be more. I missed my chance. To watch him, and I'm kicking myself for it. So don't miss the next wave as well, next season as well. Yeah, that's a great comment from Alec Taylor. I love that. Remember that show we did where we were like, what if you used every Canucks Convo sponsor at once? Like,
yeah, I do.
That was a lot of fun. I think we should try to do that again. Just like come up with a scenario where it's like, oh, I got my Uber Eats in my Prius plug-in hybrid. Did you know it has 962 kilometers of range?
Here we go, Quads. I got one. You got to be, or you're an Uber Eats driver picking up from the Greta street food menu in your Pacific Toyota dealer's plug-in hybrid Prius. There we go. And now you can deliver to Canucks Conversation listeners wherever they may be tuning in from.
And then you safely pull over. You're waiting for the food, right? And you whip open Bet365. You use promo code NATION, and you put some money on Florida Panthers comeback because the Chicago Blackhawks scored the first goal of today's game. So you hit the live bet. On the comeback. And then you donated to the BC Mental Health Foundation. And you signed up for the Daily Faceoff Survivor Pool. There, we did it. We forgetting anyone? No, we're not. Beautiful. All right. I wanted to read this one. Yeah, Erwin Aquino. Okay. Am I being disrespectful if I'm saying the Mammoth are being highly overrated? Okay, I'll be honest. I think we talk about the Mammoth a lot on this show because you and I both think they're going to be a good team. I'm not seeing a ton of like national Mammoth coverage. And that's a fun sentence to say, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm not seeing a ton of people being like, oh, Mammoth playoff lock. And that's not even what we're saying. It's just that they were right on the cusp last year. They only got better. They have a lot of young players. I think it's a team that's going to take a step this year.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're a playoff lock, but they absolutely have just as good a chance as the Canucks, if not slightly better. For a few reasons. I mean, look at the top six on paper right now, especially with the upside of how young these guys are and their potential to break out. Cooley, Gunther, Paterka is their projected top line on paper. That is nasty. They're going to crush teams off the rush. And then you got 90-point Clayton Keller on your second line alongside Nick Schmaltz, who's been a really consistent 60-plus point producer. And Barrett Hayton has quietly also become one of the league's most underrated 2A second line centers. He can give you close to 50 points and is legit above average defensively as well. Their blue line also last year, Marino and Dursey missed more than half the season. I think one of them played 30 games, the other played 35. What would happen to the Canucks if Philip Hronik played 30 games and if Tyler Myers played 35 games? This team would not make the playoffs. Even with Mancini Willander, they just wouldn't be ready to play top pair and then second pair out of the gate. Most teams, if they miss their top two RD, especially because so much of that was overlapping at the same time, would be wrecked because of that. And then the other upside case, last year they controlled play like at 5-on-5, like a legit high-end team. They ranked 5th in the NHL at controlling 5-on-5 expected goals. The only teams above them in that category were the Carolina Hurricanes who made the Eastern Conference Final, the Florida Panthers, who obviously won the Stanley Cup, the LA Kings, who were a 105-point team, and the Oilers, who made the Cup Final as well. And even you look at the other teams of the top 10, the Utah, well, they were the hockey club last year. Utah was the only team that ranked top 10 in that category that did not make the playoffs. The other teams We're also Vegas, Colorado, Tampa, New Jersey. So it's not as if this is just, some random analytics stat where a bunch of mediocre teams ranked highly. It's legit Stanley Cup contenders, 9 of them, and then the Utah Hockey Club was in that category last year. And obviously it didn't translate to wins as often last year, but teams with that profile usually have upside, especially when they're young and when they were also brutally bit by the injury bug as well.
Anything else from either of you before we wrap up today? Jacob, how's feud surveys?
When I checked this morning, we were at 88, so we're probably pretty close. I'm going to check again right now. We are at 95, so 5 more. So if there's 5 of you in the YouTube or Facebook or Instagram live chat right now who have not yet filled out the survey, go do that right now. Come on.
People on podcast are definitely missing their chance.
Unfortunately, yes. If you're on podcast,
it's gone. Sorry
about that.
We'll
Hopefully you already filled it out. Yes.
So tomorrow, I don't know what we're going to talk about tomorrow. We'll figure it out. I think isn't it a team day off for the Canucks tomorrow?
I don't know.
That would have been a question for J Pat. He's all over that.
He always knows. Anyways, whatever. We'll figure something out tomorrow. We will have a show tomorrow, and we'll be back on Thursday. Actually, Jacob, can we play Feud tomorrow? It would be a lot easier to play Feud tomorrow.
I might not be producing the show tomorrow. So
Thursday, are you producing Thursday?
Yes, definitely producing Thursday.
Okay.
We'll see. We might be able to play tomorrow. It depends. It's going to depend on the Blue Jays. If the Jays win tonight, I am unavailable tomorrow.
Okay.
Not because I'm going to go out celebrating before I start seeing it in the chat. I'm not going to be hungover celebrating a playoff series win. I actually have to work. I'll have some Blue Jays Nation stuff that I have to do tomorrow.
Do you think the Jays are sweeping?
I don't know. I think there's been some rumors that the flu bug is running through the team right now. So
the Jays,
yeah. So we'll see. I don't know. I do like the pitching matchup for them. Bieber, like he's given up some home runs since coming to the Blue Jays, but that's basically the only runs he gives up. So if he gets tagged by Judge or Stanton for a solo home run and they're down 2-0, I do like their chances of coming back. And Vladdy matches up very well against Carlos Rodon. Like, I think above 500 or just under 500 batting average with multiple home runs, no strikeouts. So
Yankees are heavy favorites. in that game. Harm, your prediction for tonight?
A sweep feels too good to be true. So I'm thinking the Yankees are going to take. I'm thinking the Yankees are going to take at least one.
Okay, so if the Yankees win, we're playing Feud tomorrow, is what I'm understanding.
Yes, if the Yankees win, we will be able to play Feud tomorrow. I already got 2 of those 5 necessary responses. So
yeah, okay. All right, we're not touching the Jays Yankees game then. We're not going to do it because I don't want to jinx them either way. And you know what? We're also not touching the Mariners game because that's in a rain delay, and I'm going to go watch it. I thought the game was supposed to start at 1:00, and I was like, I'm going to miss some of the game because I'll be watching or I'll be doing convo, not watching the game. And now it's in a rain delay. Get a roof, Detroit. So anyways, I got to wait before watching the Mariners game. All right, let's get to tonight's Bet365 bet of the day. Pittsburgh Penguins are taking on the New York Rangers, and Artur Shilovs is going to say, give me my shirt back. Artie Party is going to spoil the Rangers party. You can get the Penguins money line at plus 190 odds to open the season. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get it on the game. Use the code NATION at Bet365. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. We will wrap it up there. For my co-host Harman and our technical producer Jacob Lazar, my name is Jacob Verdrelli. Thanks so much for the episode of Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.